Welcome to the Retail Tech Podcast, where we get into the nitty-gritty of the technology used in retail stores. I'm Darius Basafi here with Nathan Kolta, and today we're going to be talking about the mobile POS systems, otherwise known as mPOS.
What I wanted to do was to start out just describing what a mobile POS system is.
Yeah, please tell us.
And then we'll go from there. So a POS system is basically the evolution of the cash register. Cash register has been around since the 1800s, is something I read somewhere. I'm sure in mechanical formats. And then with the software being added to it in the 80s and 90s, it started to become smarter. And now with the mobile devices, the mobile POS systems are basically what's going to be the future of the retail industry. Mobile means that it can be run on a like a tablet or a phone or a smartphone, something that connects to the network using like a Wi-Fi.
So I take it how these systems require a certain amount of iPhones or Android devices, or how does that work? I mean, I assume they have to have some type of a server or computer to run it as well.
Yeah, so most of the newer systems actually run from the cloud. So you have an app that you install on your mobile device. The app uses the Wi-Fi to connect to the back end of the system, which really stores all the data and does a lot of the processing and querying, things like that, up in whoever service provider you're using in the quote unquote cloud. So depending on the size of the customer, you can have a small or one store applications, maybe 5 to 10 stores, or even national chains. They can all benefit from a mobile POS system. The benefit really is, from a business standpoint, is that you really are standardizing the equipment a lot easier than in the past, and it's actually less expensive, and you can keep up with the progress in hardware. So right now, if you were to buy a POS system like 10 years ago, you had to invest a good amount of money, and you would be stuck with that hardware. The next time you wanted to do something, you would have to spend again a lot of money to get the newer version. With the mobile POS system, let's say a new tablet comes out, or new software comes out. In each case, you have a lot more flexibility to modify and keep up to date. So, and the nice thing about the software being in the cloud and the app is that you get automatic updates to the software without having to go through a lot of IT changes and things like that.
I see. I was at a gelato store in Santa Monica just a little while ago, and I was thinking, gosh, I wonder if they're running something along those lines. I know that Square has really done quite a bit of marketing to get their little devices that plug in at the bottom of a iPhone, like on the headphone jack. I found out from this gelato store that I was visiting that they also have a Square system. Obviously, it's a lot bigger, but I've just wondered, is Square the only one that's out there? Is it levels? Do they have different system requirements for their own hardware?
Yeah, so Square is actually a very good example. They really revolutionized mobile payments about 4 or 5 years ago when they first came out. Before that, in order to run a credit card transaction, which is the most convenient way of getting a payment from shoppers, was that you needed a manual card reader that was connected to a phone line that went to whoever service provider was that. What Square did was that they used the power of the smartphone and the little hardware device that they created to give that to anybody. And initially it was just processing payments, but since then they've come up with a lot of additional features and capabilities. And actually just this week they went public after 5 years of building the business. So very happy for that. They've done really good. Yeah. So
Is Square a payment system? Is it a transactional? How does that part work? I know PayPal, Square, what else is out there? Maybe Visa or VeriSign. I think it's VeriSign, or I'm starting to forget the names. But what's the differences between these?
Yeah. So the thing is that most of the payment systems are actually evolving into becoming more of a management system for the store transactions. And what I mean by that is that we are looking at when you have a retail store, for example, you need to have the inventory of your store in your system. You need to have the names and contact information of your customers. And you need to have, for example, all the history of orders, for example. When did a customer make a purchase? Was it shipped to them? Did they pick it up in the store? Because these days the shipping and delivery is also becoming very popular, and it's actually a business advantage, for example, for even local retailers to sell something to somebody a mile away and have it delivered in a half an hour. So all of these information, all of this has to be managed somewhere. It has to be stored, tracked, and then provided to the store employees as they need it. This basically means that you need to look at a lot of different aspects of it. So most of the apps or the card readers right now, they do the basic minimum, but they integrate with other software in the back end to give the store owners the other capabilities that they may want. So for example, if you want live inventory management system, you might be, for example, looking at a Square front end linking up to a Shopify back end. For example, these are just some examples. Shipping and delivery, you may want to have that same combination linking up with UPS and FedEx, USPS, and there is a host of other delivery systems like Ship and things like that. So these are all right now done by what's called an API, application protocol interface, which is really the modern way of making integrations. Another thing, go ahead.
Is it difficult for retailers to get these parts all together? How difficult is it to get it going? I know you mentioned that 10 years ago they would have had to, if they made this huge investment, they probably would have had to dump everything. But how different is it now to get it up and running?
It really depends on where they are in the evolution of their store. If it's a new store, of course, it's a lot easier. You basically are starting fresh, and you make your decisions based on your business practices and the software applications that are available. Most cases, though, it's an existing business that needs to probably make a change. And in that case, they would really have to go through and study, the different things that are already in place to see if they're compatible with the new system. So, for example, do you want to bring all the history? Let's say you've been in business for 10 years and you have a lot of history, orders, customers. That's valuable information. You want to bring all that into your new system or not? If you do, then you need to, other than the fact that you need to make sure that the systems, the databases are able to work with each other, the data also needs to be clean and migrated to the new system. So, of course, all of these things are possible to do. Developers, thank God, are so smart they can make everything happen. It's just a matter of time and money. And the biggest challenge that I see is that the expectations are not set properly. And the customer ends up spending more than they expected, or things taking longer than expected. So another aspect of the whole thing, the whole retail equation, is privacy and security of data. We all know that this is very top of mind right now, and so there are ways that retailers can actually minimize their liability significantly.
I assume this is because they're going to need some type of like compliance with like PCI or some type of credit card agency or something along those lines.
Yeah, so PCI is a part of it. PCI handles the actual transaction, the payment transaction processing, and also the data storage, as well as there are other aspects of personally on PII, which is personally identifiable information that a store might capture from a customer, and how do they use it, and how difficult is it for a hacker, for example, to get into it. So that's a very important part of the question, regardless of how big or smaller a store is. If you get into a situation like this, it's going to have a major impact on your business. So the other thing is that CRM and marketing. Of course, without advertising and marketing, we won't be in business. Nobody will be in business. Very few people, I guess I would say. So the question is, are you capturing as a retailer the type of information that you need to build a relationship with your customers? And how are you doing that? Are you being very active? Are you being passive? Are you being considerate of people's time and attention, or are you taking advantage? Are you being pushy? So all of these things are important because they in turn result in somehow the technology that has to take that information in. So so that's even for example, when you take people's emails, right now what's really important is called the double verification. So
double verification, like you're talking about the same sort of verification that someone would use when they log into their email account, or is there more to it than that?
Right. So email account is username and password, but people companies are now adding typically is a mobile phone validation as well, where periodically they will ask the user, the member, to also validate their connection using a code that is sent to their cell phone. You can see a similar type of thing happening actually in the chip-based credit cards that are just starting to come out in the US now. Is just another way of validating and reducing fraud.
Wow.
So these are all really just they may sound like small details, but they become major pains if they're not taken care of, and they're not thought of in the beginning. Sometimes you may not want to, let's say if you're building a house, you may say, okay, I don't want to have, I'm not going to have a pool right now, but I have a plan. I know I will need a pool in the 2 or 3 years, and I'll have that space back in the backyard reserved for that. So it's better to know about things and plan for it, even if you don't do it right now. Like the CRM and marketing integration is very, it's critical, because one of the very important KPIs, key performance indicators for retailers, is the customer acquisition cost. How much did it cost me to acquire this customer, and what is the lifetime value? Having
And
the
then
right technology tools, right, will directly impact these numbers.
So I assume customer retention, not just acquisition, is also part of the strategy or the how the system is integrated. It's
Definitely. Yeah.
Can you speak more to that part? I mean, how is it that a business, after they've won over a customer, how can they keep them coming back, knowing that we've got all these other things to kind of get in the way? How is there something that we can do to learn more about the customer?
Yeah. So, of course, we all know that the cheapest sale is a sale to an existing customer, right? Which is what you're talking about, is basically optimizing. So the way that you do that is basically by capturing the right information from customers and then analyzing it and personalizing it to that customer as much as possible without intruding into their private lives, of course. So that you can be top of mind for them or in front of them when they are thinking about purchasing something. Let's say I'm looking for a new dining room table and I live in Santa Monica, and I go online and I try to do something. The question is, are the stores that are actually in Santa Monica going to have a chance to present to me their products, or am I just going to go online and buy something from somebody in New York that just had more money to spend on search engine optimization, so they come up higher on the search engine?
I see.
Yeah. So, and then once that customer, that business in Santa Monica actually gets my business, what do they do to stay in touch with me? So the concept of omni-channel retail is basically multi-touch. You need to serve customers in multiple ways. They may come to your store, they may go to your website, they may reach you through the app, or they may call you. And if you have a catalog, I guess you'll also have that, but that's a rare thing these days. But those are, you have to be able to carry a conversation with the customer and build a relationship across all of these things. And you can't have the people that are in your store not know about what that customer did with you online. That's very limited for actually helping building a trusting relationship with somebody. Is that I go to the store and they don't know that I purchased something from the website last week. And this is where I'm having a problem. Because why? Because the store system is not connected to the website system. They have different databases, and they're not, or they, so, or the app. So all of these things are coming together. They need to come together. And the POS system is really where that main interaction point with the customer is, when they actually spend money with you, which is the goal of every retailer, is to make a sale.
Right. I feel like we've really learned a lot today in regards to understanding where POS has come and where it's at now and how complex it can be. And I can see why retailers really need to get all of these different separate systems all integrated into one, where customers can interact using their phones, and as well as the retailers can use their own phones and mobile devices. And I'm really looking forward to hearing more about this in our next episode. What do you think? What sort of topics do you think we'll be covering in the next episode?
So we're looking at a couple of different things. For example, beacon technologies, We're looking at actually, for example, the API technologies and how that process works. Again, my goal, from this podcast is to really address more of the technical aspects of it. There's a lot of really good sources of information on the business and marketing aspects of retail, and they do a fantastic job. But what I found from my own experience is that there is really not a lot of information that helps retailers understand the technology backend, because at the end of the day, after you make a selection, it's implementing and getting this to work in your system, in your store, and then using it, optimizing it. We have the some of the most powerful tools in our history in our hands, and we only use 5% of it.
Right.
I'm a good example of that with my phone, with my iPhone. This is something that is very important. It's also like starting to get more and more out of the tools that we have, and that's really what my goal is. So we'll be looking at other things, other technologies, and of course I would love to hear if there's any specific questions the listeners have, or they can communicate with us.
To hear from them.
Yeah.
Yes, we will have an email address
Yeah,
loaded in our podcast. Feel free to send them over, and we will make sure to answer them or use them in our next episode.
Yes.
Thank you for joining
Awesome.
us today, and we look forward to explaining and learning more with our audience.
Thanks a lot, Nathan. Have a great day.